Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, I'm bringing you guys understanding the wide receiver zero strategy for fantasy football in 2020. I'm going to go into the definition of it, how to use it, when to use it, why you want to use it, as well as an example of it being used inside of a real draft. So before I get into understanding the wide receiver zero strategy for fantasy football in 2020, I'd like to ask if you guys could please go down below and click that subscribe button. It's free, and I put out content every single day to help you guys win that 2020 fantasy football championship. This is going to be one of the videos out of many that are coming out today, so you guys want to make sure you hit that subscribe button so you're going to get all of the videos. Before we get into it as well, I'd appreciate if you guys could check out my Patreon. It has my draft guide on there, all the information you need to win your 2020 fantasy football championship. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Understanding the wide receiver zero strategy for fantasy football in 2020. First here, we are going to get the nice definition, the meaning behind what the wide receiver zero strategy actually is. The wide receiver zero strategy as a whole is not drafting a wide receiver in the first 4 or 5 rounds of your fantasy football draft. Now, this is the full-on wide receiver zero approach. There is also kind of a smaller version where maybe in the first 2 rounds you just go running back. That's kind of a smaller version of it, but the full wide receiver zero strategy is not taking one the first 4 or 5 rounds of the draft. I've seen it happen to go as far as like 6 or 7 rounds in some drafts. Now, after those couple of rounds, you're going to load up on heavy upside wide receivers in the middle of the draft. You're typically not going for some super safe picks unless they're there and you're like thinking they're going to play very well in 2020. You're going for the upside guys, the guys that are boom or bust. A guy like Will Fuller, a guy like Brandon Cooks, some of those guys that you think have tremendous upside, but obviously come with risks to them. Now, there's many ways of doing this strategy inside of your draft. Maybe you go running back, tight end. Maybe you go running back, tight end, running back. Maybe you're going running back, and then you're getting a quarterback early. You're saying, you know what, Lamar or Pat Mahomes is available in the 3rd round. Let me go ahead and snag them. I feel like the value is too strong there. Not something I would typically do, but that's the thing. So you go running back, then you go quarterback, and then you dip right back into the running back well. Another way of doing it is running back, tight end, quarterback, then running back. So maybe in the first round, you snag one of those nice running backs. You're snagging a guy like Josh Jacobs, or maybe you're going even higher. Maybe you got Derrick Henry. And then the 2nd round, you're like, you know what? Let me snag Travis Kelce. And in the 3rd round, you match him with Patrick Mahomes, and then you hop back onto the running back train. So that's pretty much what the wide receiver zero strategy implies. Now, something I also want to talk about here is to not go into your draft with one given strategy. Do not go into your draft saying, I'm going to go wide receiver zero guaranteed, because what happens if a zillion running backs come off the board and Michael Thomas is sitting there for you at the 12 spot? You should probably pick Michael Thomas. So while I am preaching this strategy, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do it. You have to use it if the scenario is right for you. That's why some people use kind of the limited version, where just the first 2 rounds they go running back, and then they fade that, and then they go wide receivers, which is definitely entirely a fine strategy as well. So don't go in there. Go in there with a blank mind of what is going to happen in the draft and ride it out like a goddamn wave, and you're surfing. Do that to the draft. So next thing we're going to be talking about here is the best format to use this strategy in. Now, you can really use it in any format, but I would say it's ideal for the league to have 2 wide receivers in it. If it's a 3 wide receiver league, likely loading up heavily on running back, maybe going 4 running backs in a row is just something that you feasibly cannot do and would kind of screw over your team. It is also great in standard leagues where wide receivers obviously don't have as much value, and the running backs also don't have as much value that are just pass catching backs, because in PPR leagues, you can find some guy in like the 9th round that's probably going to get you 8 to 9 to 10 potentially fantasy points a week at the running back position due to the fact that they're the pass catching back of the team. Whereas in standard leagues, those guys are absolutely fucking useless. Guys like Duke Johnson, who you might want to fill in on a pinch for Houston. You might say, hey, you know what, maybe this might be a good game for Duke Johnson. I'm going to throw him in. I expect 7 points out of him. Then boom, in a standard league, he might just score 2 points because he's not going to get all that many yards. It's strictly based on the targets. Now, the strategy also works in PPR and half PPR. I'm just saying I think it may be preferred to use in a standard league, but I still think it works in half PPR and full PPR because I've seen it implemented in those type of leagues. Next thing to talk about here is the best draft spot to use it. In my opinion, that is the later picks in the 1st round or the middle picks of the 1st round. So in an 8-team league, for the late picks, that's picks 7 or 8. In a 10-team league, that's picks 8 through 10. In a 12-team league, that's picks 9 through 12. And in a 14-team league, that's picks 9 through 14. For the middle round picks, what I categorize them for, in an 8-team league, that's pick 5 and 6. In a 10-team league, that's picks 5 through 7. In a 12-team league, that's picks 5 through 8. And in a 14-team league, that is picks 5 through 8 as well. So now we're going to talk about kind of an explanation of how this actually gets done inside of your draft. So this is an example. This is a 10-team league. I'm going to be giving you guys 2 examples here to show you in 2 different formats. This is a 10-team league. This is a PPR draft. Pick number 9, PPR ADP, because I said you can do this half PPR, full PPR standard. It doesn't really matter. I just think in my head it might be slightly better in standard. So understanding the draft, I have the players' names that you could go with at that pick, as well as the round next to him. So our first round pick here at pick number 9, you can go with Austin Eckler or CEH, maybe even Josh Jacobs, maybe Joe Mixon. Those guys might be available in the first round. Those are the guys you're going to get. You're going to get that number 1 running back for your team to hoist your team to win that goddamn championship, the center point of your team, right? And then you wait 2 picks because the 10 guys got to pick, and then he picks again, and then boom, you're back up again on the saddle. Joe Mixon or Josh Jacobs in the second round, maybe Miles Sanders, maybe Kenyon Drake. All those guys could be available and could be the second centerpiece of your team. This strategy has been getting used more and more over all the offseason I have seen, because so many people are loading up on running backs so heavily in the first 2-3 rounds of the draft that's why the wide receiver value is also pretty nice later in the draft, because so many people are looking running back, which is why I think this strategy is even better than normal. Now you're in the 3rd round. You obviously waited a while for the picks to come back around your way, and then boom, tight end Mark Andrews is available. Likely George Kittle won't be available. Likely Travis Kelce won't be available. If you're one of those guys that believes in another running back, maybe there is where you want to reach up. Maybe you draft Jonathan Taylor. Maybe you're thinking, hey, I put him on my bench a couple weeks in, he'll be good. Maybe you draft a guy like Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes if they're there. Maybe you want to do that. But for me, I like Mark Andrews there. I like to get that nice tight end in a 10-team league. And then in the 4th round, when the pick comes back around, you can draft Chris Carson. You could draft James Conner. You could draft Le'Veon Bell. It's the pick of the litter of those 4th round running backs. And now you have 3 star-studded running backs to start off your team and a top 3 tight end that has the potential to be the number 1 guy. And now you're in the 5th round and you're looking for a quarterback. You say, you know what, I'll wait on wide receiver 1 more round. Now right here, you could happily go wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. I don't think you have to wait 5 rounds every time, but in this scenario, I did because I wanted to see what it would look like if you took a quarterback in the 5th round, guy like Dak Prescott, guy like Russell Wilson, guy like Deshaun Watson. Any of those guys that you think could be a top 5 quarterback likely will be available inside of the 5th round. And then you come back in the 6th round, you draft DJ Chark, you draft Terry McLaurin, you draft whoever your pick of the litter is at the 6th round wide receiver. Some people like T.Y. Hilton. Some people like all these other players. That's what you're picking in the 6th round. And then the 7th round, when it comes back, you're drafting a guy like Will Fuller, a guy like Julian Edelman, a guy like Marvin Jones. And that's how you start off your team. Now, you can 100% also do this by just drafting 4 running backs in a row and having some guy on your bench, but I wanted to make sure you could see how you could fill out a team doing this. Now we're going to look at it in a 12-team scenario. If you guys have enjoyed this video thus far, please make sure to click that subscribe button down below. In a 12-team league, for this example, we're going from pick 12. This is also a PPR league. So in the first round, again, you can hammer one of those first-round running backs, one of those guys, Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake, Miles Sanders. You can mix and match any of those guys as your first and second round pick. Maybe even now Mixon has fallen back there. Even though he's gotten signed, he's been moving back in people's rankings for some reason because people are scared about it. I'm not scared at all. So rounds 1 and 2, you can go with a pick of the litter at the running back of those guys. And then the 3rd round, you're going to go down there and you're going to take another running back. You're going to say, fuck it, we're going 3 running backs in a row and go with Jonathan Taylor. Go with James Conner. Go with Melvin Gordon. Any of those guys in the 3rd round that you like. Maybe even Chris Carson. Any of those kind of players. And then the 4th round, when it's your pick again, you go with Mark Andrews. Because Mark Andrews was pretty much always available at the end of the 3rd round or the beginning of the 4th round. I'd be very shocked if he was not available in a lot of leagues. Since so many people, they just see it as the big 2 guys at the tight end position, Kittle and Kelce. And then they kind of wait. Some people even draft Zach Ertz ahead of Mark Andrews, which to me doesn't make very much sense. Then you're waiting, obviously, and now you're back into the 5th round. And then now you're hammering the wide receivers. You're going Tyler Boyd or Jarvis Landry. And then the 6th round, you hop back on that wide receiver train. You draft Hollywood Brown, Marquise Hollywood Brown. You draft Michael Gallup. You draft any of those guys in the 6th round to be your wide receiver 2, and you'll be very happy about it because your running backs are going to bolster this team and take you to that championship. And then the 7th round, if you don't want to go another running back, you don't want to go another wide receiver, just for the sake of the video, there's a solid amount of running backs there. Guys like James White, guys like Cam Akers, guys like Kareem Hunt may be available inside of round 7, not round 7, because apparently I don't know how to spell. But in this scenario, you can go Matty Ice, you can go Drew Brees, you can go Josh Allen, you can go Tom Brady, and fill out a star-studded roster by using the wide receiver zero strategy. So the verdict on the wide receiver zero strategy is actually that I like it. This strategy, in my humble opinion, is better than the running back zero strategy because of how important having good running backs is to the success of your fantasy football team. If you have two running backs on a week-to-week basis that are going absolute ham, hitting the other opponent with the 1-2 Mayweather, and you're beating out their running back core, you're pretty much going to win every single time. In real life, the quarterback's the most important position, but in fantasy football, the running back is the most important position. And the great thing about this is you don't have to worry about finding one of those late-round running backs, one of those guys that's the golden ticket to your team, while you can draft them later. I'm 100% to doing that. Draft them later, but you're not relying on it because if you're using the running back zero strategy, you're relying on those late round guys. If you're kind of going with a balanced approach, you're relying on those late round guys to bolster your team, and you just don't need it if you are loading up on those running backs early. And like I said during the video, the running backs come off the board very, very fast. So having the potential, if the value falls to you, to draft 3 in the first 3 rounds is going to make it far easier to have depth at the position. And finally, it depends less on value being great later in the draft for your running backs because wide receivers are so deep. They're deep every single year. People always buy into them a little too early, and I personally am just not about that life. So let me know what you guys think down below about the running back or the wide receiver zero strategy. Let me know if you've ever implemented this. Have you ever drafted 4 running backs in a row? Because I've done that in the league before and it works. So it's definitely possible as something you can do. So let me know what you guys think about it. Have you ever used it? Are you planning on using it? Did this video inspire you to do it? Maybe it did. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it inspired you to say, hey, fuck you, Nick. This is a terrible strategy. Let me know. I love to read that in the comments. So have a great rest of your guys' day. Please make sure to click that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in a couple of hours with another banger of a video. Have a great rest of your guys' day, and I'll see you all tomorrow. And by tomorrow, I mean later. Goodbye.